What would happen if the United States government shuts down tomorrow night? What would it mean for you, your family, and your wallet if Donald Trump decides he's not interested in keeping it open? Because right now, that is the reality hanging over millions of Americans. We are on the brink of a full-scale government shutdown, and it isn't just some political game in Washington. It's about whether your health care costs skyrocket, whether hundreds of thousands of federal workers lose their paychecks, and whether the U.S. economy, already struggling with inflation and weak job growth, takes another hit it simply cannot afford. So, why are we even here? Why does Donald Trump want to push this fight to the very edge? And more importantly, what's really at stake for ordinary Americans like you? Let's break this down. The White House just held a meeting with Democratic leaders, but it happened so late in the game that it almost feels like a formality. Think about it, Donald Trump refused to meet with Democrats for weeks, and now, literally on the eve of a shutdown, he suddenly agrees to sit down. But by then, the train has already left the station. That tells you something. It suggests that this was never really about negotiating a budget in good faith. It was about creating a showdown, a crisis moment, something Trump has always thrived on. But the real question is, why? What does he get out of dragging the entire government to the edge of collapse? The answer lies in health care. Republicans cut key provisions of the Affordable Care Act in their so-called reconciliation bill, stripping away tax credits that millions of Americans depended on to afford health insurance. And now, those cuts are about to hit like a sledgehammer. Families across the country are bracing for premium hikes that aren't just inconvenient, they are devastating. We are talking about premiums rising 25, 50, even 75%. In California alone, median income families in cities like Oceanside and Anaheim are preparing to see their monthly health care bills go up by nearly $1,000. Imagine making a modest living, paying your bills, trying to put food on the table, and suddenly you're told your health insurance now costs an extra $12,000 a year. For many families, that's the difference between stability and bankruptcy. So, Democrats came to the table with one demand: put health care back in the budget. Restore those tax credits. Prevent millions of Americans from losing coverage. Sounds reasonable, right? But here's the catch: Donald Trump hates the Affordable Care Act. He's hated it since the day it was passed, and he's made it his mission to dismantle it piece by piece. Republicans in Congress voted more than 50 times to repeal it in past years, and every time they failed, Trump doubled down. Now, with this shutdown threat, he's trying to corner Democrats into giving up. But what he's really doing is cornering you, the American people, into paying more for less health care. Why would anyone fight so hard to raise your premiums? Why would they risk shutting down the entire government to take away affordable insurance from millions of families? The answer goes back to politics, power, and Trump's obsession with undoing anything tied to Barack Obama's legacy. It's less about saving money and more about scoring points. But in the process, the real-life consequences are brutal. Millions of Americans stand to lose coverage. Older and sicker patients will be the ones left in the system, and that will drive up costs for everyone. That's the cruel math of health care. When healthy people drop out of the system because it's too expensive, premiums for the rest skyrocket. And it's not just the uninsured who pay the price, everyone's costs go up. That's the storm we are about to walk into if this shutdown happens. But here's another layer. If the government shuts down, hundreds of thousands of federal workers are furloughed or forced to work without pay. Think about TSA agents, Border Patrol officers, National Park employees, II staff, even military families waiting on paychecks. Donald Trump has already hinted at firing hundreds of thousands of federal workers, something he's been doing in slow motion anyway. Now he's threatening to accelerate it during a shutdown. The problem is, much of that is illegal. You can't just fire federal workers because Congress hasn't passed a budget. Those workers are entitled to back pay once the shutdown ends, which means taxpayers end up footing the bill twice, once for the shutdown chaos, and again when back pay is handed out. So Trump's big threat not only breaks the law, but also ends up costing the American people more money in the long run. Why push a fight that guarantees higher costs, more chaos, and fewer protections? This isn't just about legalities or budget math, it's about Trump's style of negotiation. For decades, he's been known for cutting deals with contractors, then refusing to pay them after the work was done. He'd tell them one thing, shake their hand, and then later claim the deal didn't count. Sound familiar? That's exactly what's happening now. Even if Democrats win concessions to protect health care funding in this budget, Republicans are already signaling they'll just claw it back later. In other words, they'll make a deal today and break it tomorrow. It's the political version of Trump telling contractors, do the work, but don't expect to get paid. Can a country as big as the United States really afford to be run like one of Trump's failed casinos? And let's not forget the human cost. Every time the government shuts down, real lives are disrupted. Families of federal workers scramble to cover rent and groceries. Small businesses that rely on government contracts or tourism near national parks lose income they can never get back. Veterans waiting for benefits see delays. Americans applying for passports or small business loans get stuck in limbo. Multiply that by millions, and you see how disruptive even a short shutdown can be. And yet here we are again, standing on the edge of one because of political gamesmanship. But the irony is, Trump is gambling with an economy that's already weak. Job growth under his administration has stalled, flat numbers, the worst since the Great Recession if you exclude the pandemic years. Inflation keeps creeping higher, not lower, despite Trump's promises to bring prices down. And now he's threatening to throw a shutdown on top of it all, which will only make things worse. Economists warn that even a brief shutdown could shave billions off GDP, slow hiring even further, and rattle already nervous markets. So, why gamble with an economy that can't take another shock? Why risk deepening a recessionary spiral just to prove a political point? The truth is, this fight isn't about fiscal responsibility or conservative principles. If it were, Republicans wouldn't be pushing illegal firings, higher premiums, and endless uncertainty. This is about ideology, and about Trump's personal vendetta against the Affordable Care Act. But here's the irony, it's popular. The Affordable Care Act has more public support now than ever before. Americans know it isn't perfect, but they also know it made health insurance possible for millions of families who couldn't get it before. And now, watching Trump threaten to dismantle it even further, many are asking, is this really the hill to die on? Do we really want to shut down the government just to take health care away from people? It brings back memories of John McCain, that late-night Senate vote, when he gave the famous thumbs down that saved the ACA from repeal. One act of courage stopped Trump's agenda in its tracks. Imagine if we had just one or two Republicans willing to do the same right now. Would we even be staring at a shutdown? Or would cooler heads have already prevailed? That's the cliffhanger in this story. Will any Republicans break ranks and side with Democrats to prevent premiums from skyrocketing and families from losing insurance? Or will Trump's hardline strategy carry the day, plunging the country into yet another avoidable crisis? And for you watching this, the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't about what happens in Washington, it's about whether your next insurance bill sends you into debt. It's about whether your job or your benefits are disrupted. It's about whether inflation gets worse instead of better. Every American will feel this shutdown in some way, whether it's in their wallet, their workplace, or their future stability. So, when Trump says he's ready to let the government close its doors, you have to ask, is this leadership, or is this sabotage? The next 24 to 48 hours will decide everything. Will there be a deal that saves health care funding and prevents a shutdown? Or will Trump follow through on his threats, trigger layoffs, break the law, and push millions of Americans into higher costs and greater uncertainty? One thing is certain, the consequences of this decision will echo far beyond tomorrow night. They will shape the economy, health care, and political landscape for years to come. And the American people will remember who stood up to protect their health care, and who chose to gamble it all away. So, what do you think? Is Trump using the shutdown as leverage, or is this simply incompetence? Do you believe Republicans will actually follow through on their threats, or will public backlash force them to retreat at the last minute? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you want to stay informed on how this crisis unfolds, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. This is one of those moments in history where every hour counts, and we'll be breaking it down for you as it happens.